Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Daily Volatility Box Report for November 18th, 2019. We are TOSindicators.com, home of the Volatility Box. For today's trading, we had a trade that set up in our crude oil futures market, and this is a trade that we're accustomed to seeing where price slams into our volatility box and then reverses. Also a market that we're used to trading. And so this trade ended up working out pretty nicely for us, where over our two contracts, we had a nice gain of $600. Our second trade was in the copper futures market, and this was a little bit more aggressive, using the aggressive volatility box in a market that I think we're still trying to form rules around. But the copper futures market trade did not work out, unfortunately, which led to a small loss of negative $200. I know some of you still ended up staying in, and you either broke even on this trade or even made some money. So congratulations to you there. You did better than even us following the rules for the copper volatility box, but that was our other trade that set up. And so our net P&L for today was a positive $400, really due to this copper trade, which kind of took away $200 that we had otherwise built up with our crude trade. For tomorrow in the markets, we don't really see anything that calls for our attention, so we'll continue to use our first hour volatility box test, in which we check to see whether or not the aggressive volatility box is respected and its entry lines, and then use that to make a smart decision for the rest of the day in terms of what kind of volatility to expect. And now some housekeeping items before we move on to charts. So the volatility box has been around for quite some time. I think we've had a chance to make a lot of volatility box daily videos, which also helps you understand if the volatility box fits your trading style or not, along with having just built a community of some extraordinary traders, along with just folks who have a really keen sense of observation. And so I really like the community that we have, and I'd like to protect it a little bit more. And so with that, and in this video, this marks the end of the promotional risk-free trial offer that we had available for our first batch of traders. And so now, for anyone new, you're still welcome to sign up for our futures volatility box on our website, but you'll notice that the offer is now whatever the current rate is on a month-to-month subscription, with your first month being at whatever the rate is. And so that's currently $127 a month. And then as we continue to add more features, that rate will change. Second, for all of our existing Futures Volatility Box members in good standing, so this is where you have an active subscription, you have free access to our volatilitybox.com tool all the way through the end of November, which is slowly starting to turn into a really powerful software for us to start to trade stocks very, very intelligently. And so we started to notice this is just the beginning. And so for all of our Volatility Box members, you'll start to notice, we've talked about this in some of the videos we've sent out, but we still have things coming your way like SMS alerts, so you no longer have to be glued to your screens, an incredibly powerful scan trade tab feature where we go and find the actual trades that have triggered for today, and we start to do things like backtest those results real time, so you can start to take these trades with a lot more confidence. And so I think that's going to be really powerful. And then we're also just looking at getting rid of all of the need for the indicator in the first place, which is sort of a messy process, as some of you have noticed. It works right now, but it is a little bit messy. And so that's another change where all of this will turn the volatility box into a really, really powerful software. And so that then leads us into our third point, which is quite a few of you have figured out a really, really good way to start to use the volatilitybox.com website with your existing watch list or your own scans, some entries which I'll talk about even in today's video. And you've asked us what if there's going to be a members only offer, and the answer is yes. So for all members who sign up for our futures volatility box before the end of November, you'll be qualified for that special members only offer, which will be the lowest price on that volatility box tool that we'll ever offer, period. And that's just going to be a limited time offer, really as a thank you for all of you that have been loyal subscribers and been with us just studying the futures market and really contributing. You'll see that there's going to be a nice discount for all of you for this new tool. So I'm excited to share that. That's coming in the next few weeks, but really some housekeeping alerts before we dive into charts. Let's start with our copper futures market trade first, because I think that there's amounts that we can learn from there. So if we use that same first hour volatility box test, and so we can draw a line with that first hour that the market's been open, we check to see whether or not we've been breaching either side's aggressive volatility box entry line. We see here that we very clearly had. However, this is a concept we haven't had to talk about for quite some time, which is the idea of then an opposite move in the opposite direction, but with the equal force of what would have otherwise been our stop, right? And we did get that here, which was then our sign that copper was respecting our aggressive volatility box. Our entry came as price slammed into our aggressive volatility box entry line, and here is where I drop down to a 1-minute chart. And we'll take a look at the 1-minute chart and then why the 5-minute chart might have kept you out of trouble. right? So using our 1 minute chart, we see that we had the colors change from red to orange to green. And then this was really your go-ahead signal once you have green, letting you know that on the 1 minute chart at least, that trend has reversed and we've really marked a truly oversold level. And that in conjunction with our context is really powerful. But keep in mind, this is on a 1 minute chart where you do have a ton more noise, right? Because what we then see is we slowly started to trickle back down. My stop was right outside of the volatility box, and I was at 40, and our stop at 45, and our stop came down to 40 before price then ended up reversing for the rest of the day. So now let's try and figure out maybe if there's any lessons here that we might be able to take out, knowing that this is a more aggressive market. And so with our aggressive volatility box, if we now came to something like a 3 minute chart to help us figure out if we've hit oversold or overbought levels, and that's if a 5 minute chart is too slow for you. Then what we notice is we never really went from red to orange to yellow. We only stuck with red to orange, which we talked about in an earlier video last week, is aggressive. And then you finally had your signal to go green. And so this would have been your first confirmation to get in, where your stop you have is already outside of the volatility box, and you now have confirmation on that trade on a time frame chart that has less noise. And if we switch on over to the chart that I like to use most often, that's once again your 5 minute chart, then that entry came right here where you still had an opportunity to get in at your volatility box entry line, which would have been your original entry to get start off with. But you can notice how going this way, you have a little bit more confidence in the trade than when price is falling down this way. And I think for those of you that really just aren't comfortable catching price action falling like this might be a really good tactic to help you sort of get into trades when the momentum is a little bit more in your favor while we are still at oversold, overbought areas. So you have context and you have direction with that. Another thing that we'll notice is if we come and we switch on over to our conservative volatility box, then what we'll notice is this matched our conservative volatility box perfectly at the entry line, right? And so this is our second sort of takeaway point from today, which is copper is a bit more of an aggressive market. We've made a note of this in several of our videos. And if you treated it as such, then you may just stick with your conservative volatility box, but just have it trigger an alert anytime we do actually fall into that volatility box price entry line. And that way you're letting, once again, the machine do the heavy lifting for you and just trading whenever price falls into our entry line. Now let's take a look at that crude trade, which did work out perfectly, and we'll head back to our aggressive volatility box. And so our entry came in crude as price fell perfectly into our volatility box entry lines. And this is almost as perfect of an entry as you can get, right? And that is where you caught all three of these wicks were potential entries for you. Stop was outside of the volatility box where we gave it 30 cents of room. We hit that target almost right away. And we then continued to make a move almost 46.50 cents in the positive direction before price then ended up reversing, giving us a chance to take off our second contract at once again that same T1 level, but we didn't end up making a move quite to that T2 level that we were looking for. Now, once again, if you like the afternoon risk, then you're still in this trade looking for your second target. Let's also take a look at a stock entry that's set up, and this is in a stock that has upcoming earnings. Now, one thing that I'll call out, and this is something I'm calling out because it's something I have particularly been avoiding in our scans, but a lot of our members, you have just taken out this condition and you've noticed this work out really well for you, right? And it's the idea of gap ups. But in this case, we see Medtronics, we gapped up, and at the point of our open, once our open candle actually plots, we had our bottom volatility box level plot, which we noticed happened to be a really nice overlap with what would have been a gap fill. And so as price slammed perfectly into our volatility box clouds, our entry came right as price slammed into those clouds. And if we drop down once again to that 1 minute chart, at least for stocks, if you're looking for that the best potential entry that you might have, then you had that entry come as price reversed from red to green. And once you had this green candle, you had a couple opportunities to get in at that same entry price until we made a straightforward move towards our target, just marching straight ahead, right? And here, once again, Medtronics is one of those where you could have used either options or stock. I like stock mostly because it's very precise, it's very clean, and you have these very crystal clear levels, at least when you're trying to go long, of where your entry is, where your target is, and where your stop is, right? If you're trying to use options, you're now playing a little bit of the guessing game where you're guessing what the price might be. And that's something where for some of you advanced traders, you might enjoy doing that. But for those of you that enjoy precision, I think stocks offer a really nice alternative there, at least in the direction of going long. And then what we notice is price slammed back in, and we've talked about this plenty of times, retests are not valid entries, and we can see why, right? Because as we slammed into our volatility box clouds, we never ended up hitting our second target before we then ended up making a move outside of the clouds. And so that first trade, that was our valid trade, is the only one that actually triggered until we then saw that Medtronics really just had a good burst of selling pressure and wanted to make a move down lower. In fact, this would be one of those candidates that's a trending down lower candidate for tomorrow, outside of the fact that we have earnings, which is really one of the reasons why we can then chalk up this more aggressive volatility. All right, so hopefully tonight's video helped you. Once again, just as a reminder, these are our 3 housekeeping rules. You can rewind the video if you need to listen. End of promotional offer for the risk-free trials. All of our Volatility Box members, you have free access to our new volatilitybox.com tool. You should start to see updates coming your way gradually. You've started to notice the way we operate. We take user feedback, and then we translate your own feedback into tools that I think you're looking for, which actually help you instead of building stuff that is a little bit useless that most of you don't care about. And I think a lot of you started to notice that and appreciated that. And as our thank you, we're also going to be offering our Volatility Box Futures members a special offer once we do go live with our volatilitybox.com tool, which will be the lowest price ever for that tool. All right, we hope you all have a wonderful night, and we'll see you in tomorrow's nightly update. Take care, everyone.